Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Mahindra's Thought Leadership Initiative, AI Talks. Here, we will be discussing the growing and evolving artificial intelligence landscape, various applications, effects, and futuristic view of AI across industries. The theme for the first chapter of AI Talks is Scaling AI, Changing Landscape of Enterprise IT Infrastructure. To take it ahead, I will hand over the virtual stage to Jeet.
Hi, everyone. Hello and welcome to AI Talks. It's a series of discussions amongst AI practitioners. It's hosted by AI practitioners and it's for AI practitioners. So that's democratization for you right there. We want to get you perspectives from different parts of the ecosystem and the world of AI. I am Jeet Singh. I'm Global Business Head AI for Tech Mahindra, and I'm joined by Hasit Trivedi, CTO Digital Technologies and Global Head of AI at Tech Mahindra. Hasit and my objective is to, with these discussions, is simplify to amplify. We want to discuss practical, real-world considerations on what enterprises need to consider as they scale towards enterprise AI, and the issues, challenges, pitfalls that may come along the way, and some perspective on how to tackle those. And our guest for the show today represents the infrastructure and compute pillar or rocket booster that is powering the AI rocket ship. So please welcome Sundara Ramalingam, and he's the Global Director, AI Consulting Partners at NVIDIA. Sundara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeet. Very happy to be here.
Thank you for taking the time. So I'll jump right into it. Sundara, when we talk about how AI is disrupting industries and changing business models and business processes, a lot of the time people are talking of the buzz is around AI use cases, AI models, the workbenches, etc. But obviously, all of this needs a core engine of infrastructure to support and drive this, especially as you move from POC kind of projects to production and enterprise-wide scale. So talk to us a little about the key considerations and challenges that large enterprises face as they mature in the scaling AI journey, and how companies like yourselves are enabling them to tide over these challenges.
Sure, Jeet. You touched upon my most favorite topic. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Hasit and Monica, for hosting me here. All right. So when we are talking about AI, the definition of AI has changed a lot over the recent past. When I say recent past, it's the past 7 to 8 years. And Jeet, as you rightly pointed out, AI has been there for very long. Deep learning has been there for a couple of decades, but it never left the confines of academia and research and started getting implemented in real time. That is what has happened over the past 7 to 8 years, right? And what is the reason for that? Two main drivers. Data is available. Data is available in huge quantities, from multiple sources, but two main sources that contribute to the data is social media and sensors. Both of them contribute a lot to the data. And thanks to all the research that is happening and the improvement in the computing technologies that have happened, AI has become a reality, and particularly the focus on deep learning has increased quite a bit inside AI. Now, this poses a lot of challenges for adoption. It is easy to talk about it, and it is easy to have a dream as to how do I adopt it for my own workflows. But then, hey, enterprises have been doing businesses very successfully. How do I change it to something which can be deployed for my use case, for my workflow, for what I have been doing successfully in a different way, which improves the way I have been working? That is what we should be thinking about. And we're talking about two big complexities. Number one is the enormity of the data that needs to be handled. Huge amounts of data. I don't want to go here telling that, hey, so many zettabytes. Let me not get into that. Okay. Huge amounts of data, enormous amounts of data, and the complexity of the AI models that need to be managed. And people are very happy about the improvement in accuracies, but improvement in accuracy also means the models are becoming more and more complex, more and more difficult to churn. And that is where the infrastructure comes into play, where instead of using the traditional conventional ways of computing, you move to what we call as accelerated way of computing. And this is something which organizations are finding it a little difficult to embrace, because this is a sea change. I mean, they're used to large data centers, to working on environments which are mostly CPU driven, etc. But how do you move over to an accelerated data center, where you replace, like, instead of having 100 dual CPU servers, you replace it by a few GPU accelerated servers. So this is just not changing the hardware. This is embracing a totally new way of working, what we call as parallelization, where applications are made to run in parallel. You take a very large problem, break it down into a very large number of small threads, and make each of these threads run in parallel instead of running them serially. Now, that is where organizations like us, I mean, of course, I represent NVIDIA, we come into play, where it is just not the compute engine, it is just not the hardware that we provide. It also is a very, very powerful, refined, and elegant set of software environment, which are very verticalized, something specific for healthcare, something specific for IoT, etc., that we provide, that makes the life of a data scientist or a data engineer or an advanced data analyst easier, and also makes it easier for the enterprises to adopt AI and make it as a practice for them.
Thanks, Sundara. So, and that's a great point. It's not just about, it's horses for courses, right? So you're providing not just hardware, but a software wrapper to make it, suitable for that domain. So that's a great point. Hasit, coming to you, your views on how is AI changing the hardware landscape, from requirements to every other aspect, your views on that.
First time it's in history of hardware industry. The hardware industry is behind software industry. I think software is outspacing Moore's law. Always the exponential growth of the hardware was happening, and the chips are becoming smaller and smaller and more powerful, and software in catch-up mode. With the AI, one thing which has changed is the software is ahead of the curve, and the computes is following up. I think that is a big change in itself. Historically, if you see in enterprise world, IT infra is dominated by CPUs, correct? Which is a very homogeneous landscape in enterprises, that a lot of CPU clusters exist. With the advent of AI in Industry 4.0, this world is changing. It will be more heterogeneous infrastructure in ecosystem. That would mean, and the GPUs advent from gaming world to enterprise world, correct? So GPU was there in gaming world, and NVIDIA is there in every gaming console which you have, correct? And it's now moving into enterprise world. The FPGA have started pitching themselves as a alternative to GPUs, correct? Then we have the edge AI component, correct? So that computes are happening in a client server mode, the way it used to happen in any application world. So you suddenly see the infrastructure is getting very, very heterogeneous, and that is the big change which will happen in the landscape of infrastructure, and thus landscape of application, and the way the data centers are getting constructed. And once these heterogeneous systems comes into picture, then potentially GPU will not be serving only AI. As Sundar was telling, it's all about parallelism, correct? Now you have the workloads which needs a parallelism in an application world also, correct? So various batch programming in a banking world requires huge amount of parallel computing, but because the power of GPU was not there and they were constrained by the CPU-based infrastructure, they were not able to do many things. Now with this heterogeneity, it will lead to the workload shifting from CPU to GPUs or CPU to edge or FPGAs of the world, correct? So it's a good amount of mix, and these are new things which the SI like Tech Mahindra will have to bring to the things to the table to the customer, so that customer adopts the right infrastructure strategy as they move forward in their journey to adopting the AI. So that is a big change, a heterogeneity in the world. The customer talks about the portfolio rationalization from application perspective, but it's time to change the portfolio from infrastructure perspective as well.
Thanks, Hasit. Yeah, I mean, software leading the way and challenging hardware to catch up is a good thing. NVIDIA and others are already beating Moore's law. And this kind of cycle of challenging each other to lift up their game should be good for the AI world as a whole. So good. So now, so we spoke about, obviously infrastructure and hardware, and that's where Sundara's experience and NVIDIA is coming from. But, Sundara, in your role in the, consulting partners, what is your experience about enterprises wanting to set up an AI practice today? I mean, everybody is at some point in their journey, and because this is fairly recent, everyone's setting up an AI practice at various levels of maturity. So you've obviously consulted with so many of these of your clients. What are kind of some of the best practices you want to share with an enterprise that's just wanting to set up an AI practice and spanning across multiple departments?
The most important one is to have a leader who understands AI, who understands how things work, deep learning works, and very important to define the business priorities. I have seen many organizations trying to adopt AI because their peer adopts or their competitor adopts. No, that's not. I mean, AI is not for everyone, and it is not that. Every function, every walk of life has to be driven by AI. Absolutely no. Set up our business priorities, and that can only be done by a visionary leader who is able to understand AI very clearly and marry it to the objectives of his or her organization, and ensure that the priorities are set up and the roadmap is very clearly set up. That is number one. Number two, make the right investments. And when I say the right investments, obviously infrastructure is a very, very important one, because AI will remain as POC, will remain as a bookish experiment until the right infrastructure is in place. The infrastructure could be on-prem, the infrastructure could be cloud, it really doesn't matter. But one has to very clearly understand that the infrastructure that drives AI, the engine for driving AI, is very, very, very different from what infrastructure we have been using for the past 2-3 decades. That understanding is important. Number three, the right resources in terms of skilled manpower. I have come across, this is an actual thing that I'm telling. I've come across many leaders telling that, hey, these are the brightest kids in my organization. They're like fresh out of college, 2 years, 5 years experience. I've picked them up, and you know what? Every day after 5 o'clock, they're going to work on AI project. No, that's not going to happen. Maybe you'll set up a POC. Maybe something will run, which can be showcased, which can be put in your demo center, which can be used in your business center. But can it be implementable? I really like the word you used, Jeet. Something which is implementable, but something which can really change the way your organization has been working. Then please do ensure that you have the right skilled manpower in place. Give them the time, the gestation time that is needed for them to scale up to deliver the thing that can be implemented. And once these things are in place, I can assure you that it is not too difficult to adopt AI in phases for an organization.
Thanks. So let's now stick with the theme of implementable AI, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're talking about scalable AI, but I think implementable sounds more common, more jargon free. So on the topic of implementable AI, Hasit, coming to you, your perspective on how is adoption of AI happening in the enterprise world?
I think it's pretty wide spectrum. As the name suggests, spectrum is a different colors of it. I think similarly various enterprises are at different stages of maturity. Some enterprises are using it for efficiency, more of operational nature. At TechM, we say is a zero ops kind of thing. Right? Some thinkings are happening. Some people are trying to solve the problem which were not solvable so far, and because of technology, they want to solve it. So I think that is where the lot of value lies, and what we call is the infinity ops there. Some people are taking approach of use case. Some people are taking approach of business process. Some people are thinking about responsible AI. Some people are not thinking about responsible AI. Some people are trying to future-proof their technology stack for enterprises. Some people are doing silos. different products and technologies. So if you see that maturity and adoptions are varied across the thing, there's nothing right or wrong in this whole process. Everyone company has their appetite and investment appetite, priority and path to it. So starting point can be any of these things, which is perfectly okay. But key is to have a clear roadmap to scale and sustain. I think every enterprise has to figure out a way to sustain it on an ongoing basis, which doesn't become a project specific and use case specific or process specific, because this has to percolate to all the product and services which they offer to customer. AI is a pervasive technology. It has to exist everywhere. So a careful thinking around the to be state is very important. Somebody will reach in 1.5 years or 2 years, somebody will reach in 5 years. That is not the point. The point is that are you thinking to make it sustainable and democratize way for the enterprise? And this is where the key difference between the winner and loser will come. Who are able to start out this plan will be the winner, and they will be causing the disruption, and rest of the people will get disrupted. I think it's important that this aspect is very well understood. At the same time, we also need to understand the implementable aspect. Correct? We need to understand limitation of this technology also. Correct? While it can do various complex piece which a human cannot do, it can detect diseases, it can figure out the complex anomalies among the networks. Various things can happen. But if you ask Alexa, can play a lot of things for you very easily. But if you ask Alexa, who's the latest Bollywood actress who belongs to the family who played a role of Jai in Sholay, correct? Every citizen of India probably would be able to answer, or kid will answer, but Alexa will not even understand this question, correct? Because the way you ask the question is you are taking one relationship to other and then kind of thing. It becomes very complex conversation. While if you break this question in 3 parts, all 3 answers will be get. So I think we need to understand that what is possible and what is not possible. At times, AI will be super scientist. It can solve most complex problem of the world. And at times, it will not even meet the 1-year kid intelligence also. Right? So the understanding that spectrum of the possibilities and where the limitations lies today. I'm just telling that limitations of today may not be limitations of tomorrow. But what exists today and what does not exist today is critical to prioritize and scale AI in appropriate manner. And the starting point, as I said, can be many. I think the various combinations will exist, but making it sustainable way of living and thinking is a critical to adoption of this thing. And many companies are doing pretty well in this front, correct? So I think there are examples who are doing pretty well in this space.
Thanks, Hasit. So, sorry.
Hasit, that's upon a very important point. I really liked it. And Jeet, I would like to add a couple of things to it, if I may. So conversational AI, that's what Hasit touched upon. It's a very happening thing today. And it is coming up in a very big way, thanks to the recent advancements in the NLP technology and some speech technology also, particularly the transformers that we all know about, techniques like BERT and all, have really revolutionized the way NLP has been working for a very long time now. So conversational AI, the definition of conversational AI has changed a lot. Today, conversational AI is defined as something which follows the syntax and semantics of human language. If I say, hey, what is the weather outside? It's like rainy. How far is the airport? It's 550 kilometers. That's not conversational AI. If I make using my own accent, using my own nuances of human language, if I am able if I'm asking a question and if I'm able to elicit an answer, and I don't know whether the agent who has answered is a machine or a human being, that is what is conversational AI. And as Hasit said, that's a very long way to go to achieve in its totality. But we have come very far advanced. We have reached very far advanced stages so far as conversational AI is concerned. And one important thing there is what we call as multimodal conversational AI, where, for example, I go into a store and I point my finger at an object, and then I say, what is the price of this? Okay? Here I'm talking about vision, because the camera has to identify which object I'm pointing towards. Obviously, NLP and the speech are involved because my question has to be understood. And then it has to go back and fetch the price of the object and tell me in a very human-like voice, hey, this object costs $20. That is how it should work. So that human-like, very contextualized conversation, which follows the syntax and semantics of human language, is a very important area of of research and development that is happening. And a lot of companies are doing fantastic work in this area, and we are making a very, very good and definite progress in this area.
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, so both of you have touched upon some aspects, right? So Hasit spoke about the spectrum and saying, an implementable AI practice touches across, so many or such a wide spectrum. And then, Sundara, what you're also referring to is that, look, it's not just about touching parts of that spectrum, it is about the depth as well, right? And that depth is a bottomless pit right now, because we're discovering so much more, and we're raising the bar, and it's meeting it, and we're raising the bar again. So while we talk about this breadth and depth, and to kind of put that wrapper, Sundara, you spoke about saying that, look, because of this breadth and depth, putting across an implementable practice requires patience, it requires investments, it requires some practical expectations, and you've laid out a prescription on how organizations may come across doing it. Now, in the real world, okay, you've got organizations where there's a mandate from a CEO or a CTO, and I was reading somewhere, it said AI or die. Okay, and all of these buzzwords and war cries are coming up. So organizations and also feel the pressure to kind of they're in this race, and you don't know if you will lose out, and losing out means perishing. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure in scaling up quickly, and because everyone's had this idea, there's this tremendous gap between, you spoke about taking youngsters and young talent and grooming them, etc. But that all requires patience. And right now, organizations are in this rush. Everyone wants plug and play talent available, and there's a huge supply demand gap. What's your perspective on, how should enterprises collectively and of course individually address this gap and approach it more pragmatically? Because obviously that instant solution will not come to everybody. The laws of economics don't allow it. So what's your perspective on this?
Excellent. The gap that you mentioned, the gap between supply of AI and demand of AI, I mean, if I may use that, if I may commoditize AI, right, it has opened up a whole new market in the IT world. And that is being met by none other than the global system integrators like Tech Mahindra. Because, so what is unique about the system integrators, the big system integrators like Tech Mahindra? They offer two unique deliverables. Number one, domain expertise. Example, Tech Mahindra. You guys understand telecom inside out. Right? You guys understand telecom inside out, and you guys understand many verticals inside out, right? And because of the trade that the SIs are in, the global SIs are in, they also have a very good talent pool of AI professionals. Because, I mean, as you said, I mean, they don't have a choice. They have to have both, the best of both the worlds. Whereas, let us say a traditional engineering company or traditional car manufacturer would have the right domain expertise, but they would need a lot of time to scale up sort of for a data science concern. A traditional data analytics only company will not have an expertise in an oil and gas or a telecom or a media and entertainment. This unique combination is what is offered by global system integrators like Tech Mahindra. And that is what, I mean, is a flourishing consultancy practice today. That is really blooming in a big way. So my suggestion would be, long run, it always is good for you to develop in-house talent, develop the right skill set in-house, and develop indigenous products. Depending upon the maturity of your organization and depending upon where exactly your destination is, it might take anywhere between, I don't know, maybe a few months to several years. But during that time, employing the services of the right consultant who has the expertise, AI expertise, and also the domain expertise who understands both these worlds and helps you to meet your immediate goals. To you have a project that needs to become to implemented in the next 3 months' time. Take their help, and they can. I have seen that. I have been fortunate to work with many of them, including Tech Mahindra in my current job role. And these are the people who can come to your rescue and who can help to fill the gap between demand and supply of AI expertise.
Thank you. That's music to our ears, obviously, and it is the practical reality of markets. I think domain and data science. Okay, that combination, and that is obviously the combination, like you said, that when we consult and talk to our clients, we pitch. The other advantage also is, there's so much innovation and so much discovery happening across the globe about what AI can do for you. So like you said, if you look at the telecom vertical, and we service pretty much every major telco in every continent. So, if you're consulting with a communication service provider in Australia, what companies like ours can obviously bring to the table is talk to them about the success that a peer has achieved in the Americas or in Europe, and bring that kind of use case or that example to bear for them. So no, absolutely, and thank you for that. Hasit, coming to you, how do you see the partnership with companies like so let's take Tech Mahindra and NVIDIA. How do you see this partnership evolving, and what kind of joint propositions can we take to our global customers?
Yeah, I think both of us touched about the way the AI is changing the infrastructure world, correct? And that is the core to this whole piece. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity to educate our clients around this upcoming change, which will need to think their whole underlying infrastructure asset has to be looked into from the perspective of the new kind of workload, which is AI models, AI trainings and data, correct? That is going to be exponentially increased. So getting ready for it, I think that is the huge amount of education we have to jointly do with the partners, with NVIDIA, with our customers, so that the sensitization of there, and then setting up that infrastructure, correct? So when today the data center transformation happens, not everybody is bringing these nuances of changing workload pattern because of AI, correct? I think we have an opportunity to bring that narrative together with NVIDIA and take it to our customers and bring the AI infrastructure as a part of cloud story and infrastructure story. Setting up AI cloud for our customer is also important, because every customer has to scale on their own within their enterprises, correct? And the scaling is not about the scaling of the infrastructure, associated software, and the associated data exchange and marketplace associated with it, correct? Because they have to reuse more and more. So you need to create the cloud infrastructure, which has a software layer, hardware layer, and the reusable artifact layer, correct? All this thing has to be set up, and that would mean that the GPUs of the world goes into the enterprise world, correct? And set up this whole AI cloud for customers. Then, as Sundar said, that Tech Mahindra is very strong on telecom, and 5G will be the key for further accelerating, like the cloud and data and IoT has accelerated the AI adoption. 5G will further accelerate this journey, because 5G is all about speed, correct? Now the telco would of course be able to create a pipe, but pipe has to be filled with the various use cases, correct? Data has to flow in, correct? And the newer and newer experience and intelligent experience will be governed by AI, correct? It is not the same e-commerce or mobile commerce will consume that. They don't need 5G, correct? It's working fantastically on 4G also. So the 5G will require different kind of experiences, different level of experiences. Sundar just pointed out, correct? If I point a finger to a shelf in a store, then it should be able to do the computer vision at the same time and NLP bringing together, and each of them are heavyweight, correct? The NLP is also heavyweight, computer vision also heavyweight. And doing in a store would require something, edge computing has to come in picture, correct? So this whole edge computing pieces in store, in branch, has to percolate in a big manner, correct? Today, it's almost at the most people are using for security and physical security and those aspects. But when it comes to consumer experience, next gen consumer experience will be AR, VR, AI, and those kind of near field communication, NFC kind of things will come into picture. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity. And while we talk about the domain and technology know-how, one very important knowledge which SI bring is contextual customer application know-how, correct? And their process know-how. Because all this thing has to fit in, and for every customer, it will fit in different form and shape and form factor, correct? Despite the same use case might be there. And that is the know-how which we bring. And with the NVIDIA superior ability to bring this technology things together, and they are heavily invested in software also. It's not about hardware. They are bringing a lot of software assets along with it, pre-built use cases, pre-built model. They are heavily investing in some of the areas like smart cities, medical science, and many areas which we can bundle it together and take it to market. So I see a tremendous opportunity doing this together as we move forward in this journey.
No, great. Thanks, Hasit. And, can I also add that, NVIDIA is a fantastic partner and our teams are working closely together. Sundara, thank you so much for your partnership and your support in imagining and building the future. So thank you to you and your teams for that.
Likewise, Jeet. I mean, it has been a tremendous pleasure to work with your teams and with your CTO, and it has been a fantastic journey so far, and I really look forward to collaborating even deeper with you guys.
Thank you. Fantastic. I mean, that's like I said, it's someone said it's the most exciting time to be alive, and I really feel it is, and it is being fueled by organizations like yours, like ourselves, and enthusiasts like yourselves. So thank you. For your time again, Sundara, and thank you for sharing your perspective. It's enlightening. I'm hoping that our viewers will get some perspective. Like I said, the objective was not just to do what we call in the vernacular Gyan sessions, but actually talk to practitioners about real life practical experiences. And I think that came out well in the talk. And Hasit, again, thank you for your time and for your inputs. So over to you, Hasit, for any closing comments, and then we can call it a close.
No, I think thanks for this platform. I think I really enjoyed, and nothing else from my side. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jeet. Thanks a lot, Hasit. It was, as always, a pleasure interacting with you.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me here.
Everyone. With this, we conclude with the first chapter of AI Talks. Hope to see you all in the next session. Thank you, everyone.